this program back off, or if the globalists put something into motion that they can't stop?
Well, a lot of the volunteers are speaking out about it primarily because they got their own lives to live, and they're afraid. They're afraid of repercussions. I see this playing out. I see incidents in neighborhoods, urban areas, where a suspected domestic terrorist is maybe called upon, and to use a polite phrase, and it's swelling. You know, usually in these training camps, they're not meant to suppress one individual. They're meant to suppress an area. So that means innocent people are going to have to succumb to this, and if they fight back, they too will be labeled as domestic terrorists. This will swell. It's just a matter of demographics. It depends where they hit. If you did this in New York or LA, you got a very, very complacent society there. So at that point, it'd probably be somewhat effective. But if you tried this somewhere, say, Texas or Tennessee or Central Florida, these are places that would, and they would definitely revolt. And they would be labeled as domestic terrorists, and this issue would swell, making news media pretty much feeding it however the government...
And you know what's going to cause the revolt? I want to come back and do 5 more minutes. I know you've got to go soon, but I want to break this down from history looking at it. It's going to be the minions of the enforcers and the tattletales that are going to get abusive and start abusing people that are going to cause the revolts, and I see the system losing this civil war.
In the end, yeah, absolutely, but not before there's a lot of attrition. I mean, there's a lot of people who are going to be harmed because of this. These security contractors do not care who their guns are pointed at, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. That's why they're contractors. They do what they do for money.
And they're going to be calling in drones. That's why they're getting the drones ready for everybody.
If the government won't do it, there's someone out there that will. I mean, at this point, people are hurting for money, and not all these people have ethics. And ideally, with their level of training, putting a well-paid warrior out of business and in financial ruin is a dangerous thing, because you make him desperate. And when you make him desperate, he'll make choices that he normally wouldn't make. And then you also have the contingency that really don't care anyway. And those are the ones that are still residing in these companies. ITI, you know, they are just like Blackwater. They sell to the highest bidder. They'll offer things to civilians. They'll offer to government programs, corporations. Hell, they'll run coupons with Living Social. They've done it, I think, a couple months ago. They don't care who they train. And the things they train are very, very detrimental to their fellow man.
Yeah, I think the most important thing here, David, is that we try to stave this off with information warfare, with the truth. We try to point out that foreign interests are basically infiltrating and trying to overthrow this republic, as they've done countless other countries. And this is the big moment of truth. But if it goes to physical confrontation, it's going to be a lot of black propaganda, a lot of staged terror attacks and atrocities blamed on domestic groups to turn the public against them. We've got to inoculate people psychologically about that tool up front. And also we have to understand, just killing police, military, and contractors does not defeat the New World Order. We have to understand the globalists are the enemy. The globalists are the ones that did this. I want to come right back on the other side. Stay with us. We'll be right back for a few more minutes with our guest, and I'll get into more news. Stay with us. Coming up, federal workers' data shows that their salaries exploded across the board in 2011. Well, yeah, they run the mercenaries, and they work for the foreign banks that have captured America. So for the occupational collaborator government, everything's going good. Also, New Jersey City makes it illegal to text while driving. Minnesota mothers defy criminal charges in support of raw milk. Yeah, you don't drink raw milk, slave. Talking surveillance cameras coming to U.S. streets with microphones listening to you, all part of living in 1984. Police caught in Minnesota, confirmed, Reuters, drugging Occupy Wall Streeters to turn them into drug-addled informants. Hey, kid, want some crack? We're going to be going over all that. They've arrested a bunch of News Corp executives ahead of blackmailing and bringing down News Corp for the New World Order. That's an important part of the revolution. You notice they're moving on all fronts. I'm going to get into top FBI agent who headed up the cover-up of Oklahoma City and 9/11, the head of their bomb forensics unit, Caught with child porn, the FBI says. Total setup. You know how I know? Paul Watson's got an article going up very soon on Infowars.com. We're going to be breaking all of that down. Also, Ron Paul campaign, The Future Belongs to Us, a Steve Watson article. What does his suspending the main campaign mean, but keep going for delegates? We'll break that down and take your phone calls. But first, David, I want you to recap everything you've talked about and then get into the subject of the globalists wanting to cause a civil war, because I've looked at it. I've seen them do this in other countries. They want to wreck this nation. They want to have something so bad they can get the guns, so bad during a depression they can pose as the saviors, and then roll in with foreign mercenaries and UN troops. I remember old-timers in the military, mainly high-level officers 20 years ago coming out and saying there's a plan to use foreign troops. I thought it was a conspiracy theory. Then I saw urban warfare footage of foreign troops training with our military to take on the American people, with role players having their guns confiscated here in the U.S. Then I went to drills myself at Roth Base and had the military try to set me up, and my hotel room's broken into, and I'm in Florida and Brooksville trying to cover it by a park with the military, and a guy jumps out in plain clothes, starts setting things on fire and saying that I'd done it, and me and Mike Hansen had to put it out and basically start restraining the person. Then dune buggies come pulling up. I mean, let me tell you, you're not in Kansas, okay? America's been this giant prize to take over the world with our tax money, our military, our system. The globalists stage events, then send us in to fight people they're actually funding as well as a pretext to create battle-hardened troops to bring them back here to the U.S. to attack us. And that is exactly what has now happened. That is exactly what has now unfolded. And David, let's just say, is an firearms expert and trainer, and works with a lot of people that are contractors / mercenaries. And we'll just leave it at that. And he was talking about, he just joined us now, International Training, Inc., one of the biggest mercenary outfits, huge training complex in Texas. And before, it was pretty much all fighting Afghans and Iraqis or others. That was the simulations that they were engaged in. Now it's shifting to a breakneck, massive gear up for domestic terrorists, for the American people. And you get the training manuals. It's gun owners, libertarians, conservatives, Ron Paul supporters. All I got to say is good luck. Now, let's get into any other tidbits you haven't covered and where you think all this is going, and why do you think they're gearing up, and the police and military you work with and talk to, what do they think is happening? Because I know why this is happening, but I want their perspective. What do they think's happening?
Well, I mean, a lot of people think that they're responding in a negative way, usually in a situation where you have a lot of people who become alarmed because of activities the government has. Anytime there's really no intention to apply that kind of force to the people, the government will usually respond with the tactic of do nothing. But now they're doing something in the polar opposite. They're actually gearing up. They're bringing in these people. They're flexing the idea. Originally it was, everyone was fearing the UN troops. There's maneuvers going on stateside, things like that. And they started seeing the reaction of the American people. And now they've switched their focus more over to the security contractors. These are people who they actually sort of live above the law. And a lot of people are concerned with it. A lot of people are starting to stockpile provisions because of it. Before they had some concerns that were legitimate about the economy and things like that. But when you actually see the government take steps like this to hire these types of people to do these types of maneuvers, it's terrifying. And at the end of the day, no one can really say how exactly it's going to play out. So everyone's just starting to prepare.
Continue.
Basically, we have a lot more of these firms popping up. GS4 was a separate firm. Now they're united with ITI. They have a location in Virginia as well as Texas. These are huge compounds, like 300 acres or give or take a quarter. But basically, they're training everything from ambush tactics, urban warfare, going on into hand-to-hand, as well as doing a live simulation fire. They're also utilizing some of this training on, as I said earlier, they're bringing the community in, and unbeknownst to them, these people think they're having fun fighting these government contractors. Meanwhile, these government contractors are practicing on them, and they don't even realize it. And this is as mainstream as I said earlier. I saw a Living Social ad back in March, I think, that was basically for a live fire training day where they would learn how to drive a car in hostile situations and go through tactical live fire simulation drills. And what they're not realizing is the instructors there are practicing on them. They're utilizing them to create more war games on a private end.
Well, that's what's funny is people would put all these Blackwater stickers on their car and talk about how patriotic they are. They're in Dubai. They are, in there overcharging the government. The contractors that's come out in federal court would get naked at parties with a bunch of men. This came out in federal court and used so much cocaine in Baghdad, they would run around and just start shooting everybody for fun. We would hear those stories. Now that's confirmed. Well, obviously, somebody morally that will take on the American people, of course they're going to have other problems. And it just shows they're divorced from reality. And so what you see is all the good people leaving. Again, these evil people, though, I've noticed, don't work very good together, and it doesn't go on for long, and they have so many problems. I think this is an enemy we're going to be able to defeat if it does go to physical confrontation, because they're going to commit atrocities, and the American people are going to wake up. And so I think the globalists have miscalculated. They think it's going to be some long-term civil war. They're going to be able to control it. They're going to be able to stage events and blame it on domestic groups. That's not going to happen. We got the jump on them. We warned people for years and got made fun of. We're not getting laughed at now. And I just want people to understand that, is that the police and military I talk to now are waking up. What are you seeing with police and military? Because you work with a lot of them. Are they waking up as I'm seeing?
A lot of them are. A lot of them are. And that's really the contingency that I don't think the government has prepared for. You have a lot of these people, like these civilians who are seeking training aggressively and pick up like the deals like I mentioned earlier. And while they're getting training, they're also being labeled. But what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these veterans, police officers, things like that, they are actually prepared. They are ready to go. They're keeping their mouth shut because it keeps them in line of information. They don't like to be kept in the dark about these kind of things. So a lot of them are just ready and waiting. So there's a contingency of active soldiers, veterans, as well as law enforcement who will turn. And when that happens, the government's going to get a bigger bite than they're expecting.
And again, the government is a foreign Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan occupation force on record. That's The Economist magazine. They think we're so stupid. They think you're so stupid, soldiers and police, that they brag. And Henry Kissinger wrote in Woodward and Bernstein's book, was quoted as calling you dumb animals. Well, are you dumb animals? I have to say, the military is the most awake group I've seen now. And that's why they're converting it over to gang members and contractors and criminals and foreigners, is because they believe they'll do whatever they're told. So by and large, more and more, the military is gone because the globalists have to destroy it before they destroy the United States. And while having our military do missions that are illegal and criminal, while giving us a domestic propaganda broadcast that makes us think it's good, the globalists are demonizing us worldwide before our destruction. This has all been thought out 20, 30 levels deep. People say the globalists are thinking, 6-month increments. No, they're thinking in 50-year plans, as Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote in 2 of his books. That's why we saw this way off, and many people saw it 50 years ago, and we've been on a 50-year plan against them, knowing it was coming to this, and that's why we're going to beat them. We don't have a choice, but I'm telling you, folks, we have a good chance if you scream bloody murder, get the word out aggressively now and warn people, and speak out now, and keep leaking information now. I've been told by high-level sources, David, the system got so freaked out when we leaked 2 weeks ago the re-education camp document that the Army now confirms is real. Have you heard anything about re-education camps?
I haven't heard about it. I've heard it's something up in Wyoming. Went in one ear and out the other. Something I can get more information about. But some sort of DHS facilities they'd set up outside of Cheyenne for domestic terrorism or something like that. But outside